Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we'll be studying the words of the Buddha. We're in Volume 9, which is titled The Six Sense Spaces. We're going to be studying chapters 21 through 30 today. And the way that we do this program is I open up to anybody in Zoom to volunteer to read a chapter. After someone reads a chapter, I'll share some teachings on that. Then afterwards, I'll open up to any and all questions that you might have. If you would like to read and you're in Zoom, all you need to do is electronically raise your hand and then unmute your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you as you read the chapter. Then if you'd like to ask questions and you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can ask questions by putting that into the comment section. I'll be able to see that. And then I'll basically repeat your question in the class. And if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that way as well. So it looks like Pat has a hand up, so he would like to read this first chapter. So go ahead, sir.
Thank you. One must put forth extra intention, effort, and energy. Monks, though a monk be not skilled in the habit of others' thoughts, at least he can resolve, I will be skilled in the habit of my own thought. Thus, monks, should you train yourselves. And how is a monk skilled in the habit of his own thought? Just as if, monks, a woman or man, or a young child, fond of self-adornment, examining the reflection of his own face in a bright, clean mirror or bowl of clean water, should see there is a stain or speck and strive for the removal of that stain or speck. And when he no longer sees it there, he is pleased and satisfied because of that, thinking, again it is to me that I am clean. So a monk's pondering is most fruitful in good conditions thus. Do I or do I not generally live with sensual desire? Do I or do I not generally live with ill will in the mind? Do I or do I not generally live possessed by complacency? Do I or do I not generally live with restlessness and worry in mind? Do I generally live in doubt, or have I crossed beyond it? Do I generally live with anger or not? Do I generally live with soiled thoughts or clean thoughts? Do I generally live with body aroused or not? Do I generally live sluggish or full of energy? Do I generally live uncontrolled or well controlled? Monks, if on examination a monk finds thus, I generally live with sensual desire, ill will in mind, possessed by complacency, restlessness, and worry in mind, doubtful, angry, with soiled thoughts, with body aroused, sluggish, and uncontrolled, then that monk must put forth extra intention, inclination, aim, effort, energy, mindfulness, and concentration for the adorning of those evil, unwholesome states. Just as, monks, when one's turban or head is ablaze, for the extinguishing thereof, one must put forth extra intention, inclination, aim, effort, energy, determined mindfulness, and concentration. Even so, for the adorning or abandoning of those evil, unwholesome states, one must do the same. But if on examination a monk finds thus, I do not generally live with sensual desire, ill will in mind, possessed by complacency, restlessness, and worry in mind, doubtful, angry, with soiled thoughts, with body aroused, sluggish, and uncontrolled, then that monk should make an effort to establish just those wholesome states and further to destroy the fetters, taints, or pollution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So what the Buddha is talking about here is having right mindfulness to be aware of what's going on within your own mind. And then when you see certain unwholesome qualities, that you apply right effort to eliminate that out of the mind. He's giving kind of a background story of all of that, and he's going into detail about individual unwholesome thoughts that one could have. These first 5 are what's called the 5 hindrances. These are the 5 things that will hinder an individual from getting to enlightenment. When there's sensual desire, ill will, complacency, restlessness, and worry or doubt. So these are things that the Buddha is guiding you to be attentive to, that you look to see if the mind has any of these things. And I'm pretty sure you guys understand what all these are, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know and I'll help you to be able to understand what they are. Then he goes beyond that and he talks about anger, soiled thoughts, body aroused, meaning like, the body's longing, yearning for pleasantness through having, pleasurable contact through the body, sluggishness, or the mind is uncontrolled. These are all unwholesome qualities that an individual would need to be attentive to with the mind, so that as you see those arise, you can apply right effort to cut those off and let them go. You're going to need to apply dedication, determination, and effort to be able to eliminate them. And he gives this analogy of an individual whose head has caught on fire, their turban, this wrapping around their head. And just like you're going to need to apply extra intention, inclination, aim, effort, energy, and determined mindfulness and concentration to put it out, it's the same thing that if you notice these particular qualities in your mind, you're going to need to apply effort to cut those out of the mind and get rid of those unwholesome states of mind. And down here in the portion that I share, I have this chart, this table that shows you the unwholesome quality that the Buddha is talking about throughout that discourse. And then I show you the wholesome quality that's going to antidote that and remedy it. So this is what you can understand, that if you have with your mindfulness and you see any of these unwholesome qualities arise, you can apply right effort to abandon those. And then you can apply right effort to be able to arise these. And that's what's going to help you to purify your mind of these individual aspects of the mind. So let me know what questions you guys have here. The Buddha is essentially alerting you to 10 individual unwholesome qualities of mind that could arise that you're going to need to apply effort to eliminate out of the mind. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So it looks like Vibhav either has a question or he'd like to read the next chapter.
So one question, and I can read the next chapter as well. The question is, it says that a monk be not skilled in habit of others' thoughts. What does that refer to? Like,
though a monk not be skilled in the habits of other thoughts, at least you can understand your own thoughts, right? You can be skilled in your own thoughts, even though you don't know what other people's thoughts are. You can be skilled in having mindfulness of your own thoughts. Okay. All right. So let's go down to the next one, which is chapter 20. Oops, I must have passed it. Chapter 22, right there.
excitement to be abandoned in all acts. Monks, if while he walks such sensual or harmful or cruel through thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence. A monk who while walking becomes one who is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. If while he stands such, sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence. A monk who while standing becomes one is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. If while he sits such, sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence. A monk who while sitting becomes one is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. If while he lies and awakes such, sensual or harmful or cruel thoughts arise, and he does not welcome them, but rejects, expels, and makes an end of them, drives them out of renewed existence. A monk who while lying awake becomes one is called dedicated, diligent, always and forever strong in energy and determined. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vibhav. So here, the Buddha is talking once again about certain unwholesome thoughts that could arise. Whether you're walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, you need to be attentive to the mind with your mindfulness. From the moment you first start waking up all day long until you're dozing off at night, you'd like to practice mindfulness or awareness of mind, because your thoughts can invade you at any particular time. And if you're not attentive to the mind, applying right effort to eliminate the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome, those invasive thoughts can actually motivate unskillful conduct. So if you're just starting to wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to work, or, oh, do I have to really see that person today? Oh my goodness, right? If you're having those kind of unwholesome thoughts, you need to recognize that even as you're still just kind of waking up in the morning, you'd like to cut that off. Or if at night you're dozing off at night and you're thinking unwholesome thoughts or things like this, you would like to cut that off as well. So you're going to need to be attentive to the mind if you're noticing any kind of sensual thoughts arising, any harmful or cruel thoughts arising. You're going to need to apply right effort to cut that off. This task to get to enlightenment, it's a full-time job, right? It's like you're not like checking out. Like when you're on holiday or vacation, it's not like, oh, I'm on vacation, I don't have to train my mind. No, even when you're sitting in that restaurant, even when you're checking into the hotel, even when you're in the airport, walking through the airport, or your flight's delayed or canceled, you need to be practicing the teachings. It's a full-time job to transform the mind. And there's quite a bit of effort involved, especially as you're just getting going. But over time, this effort becomes less and less because your mind has cultivated enough restraint, it's cultivated enough discipline and the wisdom to be able to support you in your practice that you can just walk with ease through all your day-to-day activities. And the way that you get to that is by being attentive to your mind at all times during your day. As you're first starting to wake up, all day long, and as you're going to sleep at night. You need to be attentive to the mind with your mindfulness, and at any point you see a sensual thought, a harmful thought, or a cruel thought arise, apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. All right, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So let's move to the next one, which is chapter 23. And this is right effort. Would someone like to read this one? Okay, it looks like Samantha. Go ahead, ma'am.
The four efforts, first discourse. Monks, there are these four efforts. What four? The effort to restrain, that to abandon, that to make arise, and the effort to preserve. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to restrain? Here a monk generates intention for the non-arising of evil, unwholesome states that have not yet arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind to this end. This, monks, is called the effort to restrain. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to abandon? Here a monk generates intention for the abandoning of evil, unwholesome states that have arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind. This is called the effort of abandon. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to make arise? Here he generates intention for the arising of wholesome states not yet arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind. This is called the effort to make arise. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to preserve? Here a monk generates intention for the establishing, for the non-confusion, for the more existence, for the increase, cultivation, and fulfillment of wholesome states that have arisen. He makes an effort, applies his energy, he lays hold of and exerts his mind to this end. This is called the effort to preserve. So these, monks, are the four efforts.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. So this is right effort from the Eightfold Path. It's just kind of worded in a slightly different way, where what you learned in the Eightfold Path as part of right effort is you learn to prevent unwholesome qualities that have not arisen from arising in the mind. That's restraining the mind. That if there's any unwholesome quality that's not currently in the mind, you would like to prevent the mind from ever allowing that to come into the mind. You're restraining the mind in that situation. You'd like to abandon certain unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. That's the second part. Then there's producing unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. That's making something arise that is wholesome that is not yet currently in your mind. And then you'd like to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away and bring them to full growth and full perfection in the mind. This is preserving the qualities of the mind that are wholesome. So the way that I teach this very simply is I say, kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. But in the Eightfold Path, whenever you guys have learned that from me, I've walked you through and given you examples of all of these. If you need examples of understanding how to apply right effort, just let me know. But I think most of you guys understand this already, where you need to apply the actual effort to either prevent unwholesome qualities or eliminate unwholesome qualities from the mind, or you need to apply right effort to bring in wholesome qualities or maintain wholesome qualities in the mind. These qualities that you're looking to get rid of and cultivate, they're not just going to happen by themselves. You're going to need to apply the effort to do this. And this is why you're training your mind in meditation and all the other aspects of the path, is that you're actively working with dedication and diligence to apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. So let me know what questions you guys have here. And if you need examples, just let me know. I'll be pleased to help you guys understand how to apply these in your day-to-day life. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So let's go to the next one. This next one is 24. Looks like Pat would like to read that one. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you. The four efforts, second discourse. Monks, there are these four efforts. What for? The effort to restrain, the effort to abandon, the effort to make arise, and the effort to watch over. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to restrain? Here, having seen a form with the eye, a monk is not entranced and does not grasp its general features or its details. Since, if he left the eye faculty unrestrained, evil, unwholesome states of craving and aversion might invade him. He practices restraint over it. He guards the eye sense base. He undertakes the restraint of the eye sense base. Having heard a sound with the ear, having smelled an odor with the nose, having tasted a flavor with the tongue, having touched a physical object with the body, having recognized a mental object with the mind, a monk is not entranced and does not grasp its general features or its details. Since, if he left the eye sense base unrestrained, evil, unwholesome states of craving and aversion might invade him. He practices restraint over it. He guards the eye sense base. He undertakes the restraint of the eye sense base, wins the restraint thereof. Similar discourses are spoken in the case of the ear sense base, the nose sense base, the tongue sense base, the body sense base, the mind sense base. This, monks, is called the effort to restrain. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to abandon? Here, a monk does not welcome sensual thoughts that has arisen, sensual thought that has arisen. So also with regard to harmful and cruel thought that have arisen. He does not welcome evil, unwholesome states that arise from time to time, but abandons it, expels it, makes an end of it. He drives them out of renewed existence. This, monks, is called the effort to abandon. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to make arise? Here, a monk makes to arise the limb of wisdom that is mindfulness, the limb of wisdom that is investigation of the teachings, the limb of wisdom that is energy, the limb of wisdom that is joy, the limb of wisdom that is tranquility, the limb of wisdom that is concentration, the limb of wisdom that is equanimity, that is based on seclusion, on freedom from strong feelings, on elimination that ends in surrender of the mind. This, monks, is called the effort to make arise. And of what sort, monks, is the effort to watch over? Here, a monk watches over favorable concentration mark, the idea of the skeleton, the idea of the worm-eaten corpse, of the discolored corpse, of the cracked open corpse, the idea of the initiated corpse. This is called the effort to watch over. These, then, monks, are the four efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So here the Buddha is going into detail about applying right effort in regards to the 6 sense bases. You're going to need to apply right effort in multiple situations, not just the 6 sense bases, but let's just say that you're having conceit or you're having any other thing like this. It's not just sensual desire, right? There can be conceit in the mind that you need to watch over that and eliminate that, applying right effort. But here, in terms of the 6 sense bases, this is where you're going to have contact. Even the conceit itself is going to be coming through the mind. So if you're watching over the 6 sense bases, then you can apply right effort given any situation that you're having that the mind is experiencing unwholesome, or if you're having wholesome thoughts, you can support those and encourage those and not allow them to fade. So he goes through the 6 sense bases here and saying you need to restrain the mind, that if you're noticing any sensual thoughts that are coming in based on contact through the six sense spaces, now you apply the effort to cut that off and let it go. Because you could be walking down the street, you could be sitting in an airport, you could be driving your car down the road, and there could be any number of contact that you experience through these six sense spaces, and now there could be a central thought that arises as part of that. And what the Buddha is saying here is that you're not entranced by that you don't grasp at its general features or its details. That say that you're driving down the road and you hear some wonderful music coming out of somebody's car next to you. It's like, oh, wow, that's wonderful music. It's like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite song. I'm just so glad to hear that. I want to hear it again and again and again. That would be like longing, yearning for it, right? But if it's like, oh, wow, that's some really good music. Like, yeah, let's have some fun, right? You can enjoy this music without grasping at it and clinging to it and trying to hold on to it. And there's other examples that we could use here too. So that's where you need to restrain the mind. If you see the mind going into that level of craving something that it's come in contact with, you're going to need to restrain it and understand that because of this contact that it's having, it's going to long and yearn potentially. Because if the mind still has central desire, it's going to long and yearn through those sense spaces. So you're going to need to restrain the mind. Then the Buddha talks about abandoning that anything that has arisen in the mind, like a central thought, a thought of harming or a cruel thought, this is related to right intention. If you remember right intention, he talks about the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. That's what he's talking about here, is that if you notice any of these sensual, harmful, or cruel thoughts coming up, you apply right effort to abandon that. And then that is then practicing right intention. And then here he's talking about making arise, to make arise these wholesome qualities. These are the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment are a tool to fine-tune the mind, where you're always practicing mindfulness. You need to have the wisdom of understanding what mindfulness is, which is awareness of mind, but more specifically, those 4 foundations of mindfulness. That's what's really going to transform the mind. There's really no secrets to the path to enlightenment, and there's really no like this one thing, if this is the one thing that you need. But if there was something like that, it would be the 4 foundations of mindfulness. If you don't understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you'd never get to enlightenment. But also, if you never understood the 5 precepts, you'd never get to enlightenment or meditation training or any of those other things. But in terms of like putting all of these teachings of the Buddha into practice and forward momentum, it's mindfulness that's going to allow you to do that. Because when you understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects, this is where you can really transform the mind, because you can get ahead of the curve. That you're not allowing the mind to become angry, you're cutting it off before it actually experiences the feeling. You're cutting it off as a bodily sensation. So you're going to need to practice this mindfulness at all times. That's what the Buddha was talking about being aware of what's going on in the mind from essentially the time you wake up all day long and as you're going to sleep. And then you're going to need the wisdom of all of these other factors of enlightenment. Now, these factors of enlightenment, sometimes people think it's to determine whether or not you are enlightened or not, but it's actually a tool to fine-tune the mind. That if you're noticing the mind is sluggish, dull, lethargic, complacent, you would like to practice investigation, energy, and joy. Because with your mindfulness, you'll be able to spot whether the mind is sluggish or dull or complacent. And that's where you can apply the effort to make arise this enlightenment factor of investigation, where you're examining and investigating the teachings of the Buddha. And then arise this energy and this determination, this diligence, and then arise this joy, where it's unconditioned joy. Then when you notice the mind is excited and overactive, that's where you like to bring in the tranquility to calm the mind down, the concentration and the equanimity, where there's calmness and composure in the mind. This is what's going to help you to essentially get to enlightenment. That's what he's talking about here, that there's this freedom from strong feelings and elimination as you're making these qualities arise in the mind. Then what he's talking about here in terms of watching over the mind, this is actually to help you eliminate central desire. What he's talking about here is essentially developing the unattractiveness of the body. That through having concentration, that you cultivate this unattractiveness of the body. During his lifetime, it was looking at corpses, because they had readily available access to a dead corpse that were around in the community, where nowadays we don't really have as much access to that. Although you can go to like a cadaver lab and places like this that have cadavers, this can be really helpful for you to see true reality about how the body looks. And those things are usually inexpensive. I went to one when I was in the USA. It was like $15 to go into a cadaver lab. You could spend as long as you'd like there. And they had different dead bodies around, and they had them dissected, and some of them had the skin pulled off. You could see all the different functioning of the human body. This is really helpful for you to be able to eliminate any kind of central desire. Because one of the strongest central desires that the mind tends to have is to have sex. And it's because we don't see the body as it truly is. Once you see the body as it truly is, you can start to gradually eliminate more and more your central desire. There's other ways that you can accomplish this as well, but this is the way that the Buddha would do it, is through observing a corpse. And here you can see the descriptions that he's talking about. The worm-eaten corpse, the discolored corpse, the cracked open corpse. And not only did they have the visual representation of this to be able to see this going on, but they could smell it too. And that would kind of turn the mind away from being interested to have sex with the human body. And this will help you with all your other central desires as well. Because if you can train your mind to eliminate the central desire for sex, well, letting go of this chocolate cake or ice cream is going to be pretty easy for you, right? So when or if you're ever ready to choose to move away from sex is a decision for you to make. But if you're interested in doing that, this is one of the ways to do it, is to observe dead corpse. And there's ways that you can do that even nowadays if you'd like to. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this particular discourse. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So let's move on to the next one. This is chapter 25. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, looks like Samantha's going again, and then maybe Vibhav.
The ending of the round. On seeing a form with the eye, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. On hearing a sound with the ear, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. On smelling an odor with the nose, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. On tasting a flavor with the tongue, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. On touching a physical object with the body, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. On unrecognizing a mental object with the mind, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. He resides with mindfulness of the body established, with an immeasurable mind, and he understands as it actually is the liberation of mind and liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states are eliminated without remainder. Having thus abandoned favoring and opposing whatever feeling he feels, whether pleasant or painful, or neither pleasant nor painful, he does not seek excitement in that feeling, welcome it, or remain holding to it. As he does not do so, excitement in feelings is eliminated in him. With the elimination of his excitement comes elimination of clinging. With the elimination of clinging, elimination of existence. With the elimination of existence, elimination of birth. With the elimination of birth, aging and death, sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair are eliminated. Such is this elimination of this whole mess of discontentedness.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. So here the Buddha is helping you to understand how to eliminate the discontent feelings and eliminate this continuous rebirth, ending the round of constant rebirth. So as you're eliminating central desire, you'll get to the point where you don't have this favoring and opposing, where you don't have this pleasing or unpleasing aspects of the mind, where you can see a certain form or hear a certain sound or smell an odor, taste a flavor, touch a physical object, or recognize a mental object. And you might know that it's pleasing. It's like, wow, that's really enjoyable, but your mind doesn't crave and long for it. And when you experience something, you can be like, oh, wow, that's, not so enjoyable, but your mind's not averse to it. You're not repulsed by it. So this is what you're ultimately working towards, because you're still going to experience contact through the six sense bases as you're out and about in the world with an enlightened mind, not having central desire. But the difference is that you don't have this favoring and opposing. And the way that you get to that is what we were just talking about, which is developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. When you develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness, you have awareness of the bodily sensations that are occurring before the mind establishes a conditioned feeling. That's so important to develop that. Not just with the painful feelings like anger, frustration, stress, anxiety, guilt, or shame, or fear, things like that, but even with the pleasant feelings. That if your mind's going to form a pleasant feeling, other happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, they're going to be pleasant bodily sensations that are arising. And you need to recognize that for what it is and cut it off and let it go. And consider that to be unwholesome. You will have plenty of enjoyment. You will have plenty of happiness and joy in the enlightened mental state. But as long as the mind holds on to this temporary pleasantness, you're never going to get to the permanent joy, the permanent happiness. So it's this arising of the mindfulness and making sure that you're practicing that all throughout your day, where you're aware of the bodily sensations so you can cut off and let go there. That's like putting a blockade, not allowing the mind to form any kind of conditioned feeling. As you make your way from now to enlightenment, there's going to be situations where your mind does form a conditioned feeling, right? Because you can't just snap your fingers and instantly implement these teachings. But when it does, you need to be on top of that and really cut it off and let it go. And if you need to redirect your mind at either of these times, whether it's the bodily sensations, the feelings, or at the condition of the mind, you can do that. You can redirect it in another path or another direction. And that's what's going to help you to be able to restrain the mind and get to the point where the mind's no longer forming these conditioned feelings. Because the bodily sensations are a way for your mind to alert you that, hey, you're about to get a conditioned feeling. And if you allow the mind to form that feeling, your mind's going to stay wired that way, where it's gotten some contact from the outside world through these sense spaces, and now you're going to form a feeling about it. Where what you would like to do is when you have that contact, if you're noticing a feeling's getting ready to be formed because of the bodily sensations, is cut that off and let it go. And more as you do this, your mind won't do it anymore. You'll just know wise decision making. You'll have plenty of happiness in the mind because you're not having this favoring and opposing. As long as you have these favoring and opposing in the mind, as you're experiencing contact through the 6 sense spaces, you're going to see some things as being agreeable to you, and you're going to see some things as being disagreeable, and you're going to get pleasant feelings or painful feelings. But when you abandon this favoring and opposing, where you're not favoring or opposed to any particular contact, but you're just making wise decisions, maintaining your stability of mind and moving through the world, you can get to the point where you're no longer experiencing these discontent feelings. And that comes with eliminating these conditional excitement, which is part of the pleasant feelings. And then the Buddha kind of goes into a little bit of dependent origination here, but he kind of switches it up a little bit, where he says, okay, if you've eliminated excitement, then you'll eliminate clinging. Because when somebody gets excited, when they have that pleasant feelings, the mind will tend to cling to it and want it to last longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. So you need to be able to be willing to let that go. That you don't allow the mind to form that conditioned feeling to begin with, but you don't cling to this experience. That you can enjoy something and then just move on with your day. That you don't have to sit there and dwell in it. And by eliminating clinging, it'll eliminate existence. By eliminating existence, you eliminate birth. By eliminating birth, you're going to eliminate aging, death, sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair. All the discontentedness. So this is how you eliminate your discontentedness, and this is how you eliminate continuing to come back into the world over and over and over again. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this one. This is chapter 25. All right, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So let's go to the next one. I'm not sure, Viphav, if you'd like to read that one. This is a pretty long one. Would you like to read this one?
Sure.
Okay, so this is going to teach you how to, or one second,
sorry.
Vibha. This is going to teach you how to develop those 4 foundations of mindfulness. The Buddha is now going to walk you through how to actually do that.
Mindfulness directed to the body, a strong post of mind. One dwells without having set up mindfulness of the body. Suppose, monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would tie the ropes together with a knot in the middle and release them. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction on its own, feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull away the snake would pull one way, thinking, let me enter an anthill. The crocodile would pull another way, thinking, let me enter the water. The bird would pull another way, thinking, let me fly up into the sky. The dog would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a village. The jackal would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a charnel ground. The monkey would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a forest. Now, when these 6 animals become worn and fatigued, they would be dominated by one among them that was the strongest, and they would submit to it and come under its control. So too monks, when a monk has not developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, an eye pulls in the direction of agreeable forms and disagreeable forms are repulsive. The ear pulls in the direction of agreeable sounds and disagreeable sounds are repulsive. The nose pulls in the direction of agreeable odors and disagreeable odors are repulsive. The tongue pulls in the direction of agreeable flavors and disagreeable flavors are repulsive. The body pulls in the direction of agreeable physical objects and disagreeable physical objects are repulsive. The mind pulls in the direction of agreeable mental objects and disagreeable mental objects are repulsive. It is in such a way that there is non-restraint.
Okay, let me talk about this and then we'll go to the next piece of this, Vibhav. So this first description that the Buddha is describing is these 6 animals that have ropes tied around their neck, and then they're tied together in a knot, all 6 of these animals. And all 6 of these animals are pulling in opposite directions. And what the Buddha is saying is that when these animals get tired, whichever one is the strongest, it's going to pull all the other animals in that direction, right? So if all the other animals get tired and the crocodile still got energy and still got strength, it's going to pull all the other animals in that direction. And this is what's happening with the 6 sense bases, is the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself are pulling in all these different opposite directions. And as they're pulling, whichever one is the strongest is going to pull you in that direction. So if you're walking through the mall and a certain human being catches your eye and you see a handsome man or a beautiful woman, it's your eye that's going to pull in that direction. Or if you smell a certain perfume or cologne, your nose is going to pull in that direction, right? So there's no restraint here. The mind is just being pulled in all these different directions, just like the animals, because the 6 sense bases are not restrained. The mind still has sensual desire. It doesn't have this ability to restrain the mind because it hasn't yet set up mindfulness of the body. So now the Buddha is going to explain to you the scenario that once you set up mindfulness of the body, what is actually transpiring. So if you'd like to pick it up from here, Vibhav, you're welcome to.
Yeah. One decides having set up mindfulness of the body. Suppose a monk would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal. Did we already read this?
No.
He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and a monkey and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would bind them to a strong rope, a post or pillar. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, let me enter an anthill. The crocodile would pull another way, thinking, let me enter the water. The bird would pull another way, thinking, let me fly up into the sky. The dog would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a village. The jackal would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a charnel ground. The monkey would pull another way, thinking, let me enter a forest. Now these 6 animals would become worn and out and fatigued. They would stand close to the post or pillar. They would sit down there. They would lie down there. So too monks, when a monk has developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye does not pull in the direction of agreeable forms nor are disagreeable forms repulsive. The ear does not pull in the direction of agreeable sounds nor are disagreeable sounds repulsive. The nose does not pull in the direction of agreeable odors nor are disagreeable odors repulsive. The tongue does not pull in the direction of agreeable flavors, nor are disagreeable flavors repulsive. The body does not pull in the direction of agreeable physical objects, nor are disagreeable physical objects repulsive. The mind does not pull in the direction of agreeable mental objects, nor are disagreeable mental objects repulsive. It is in such a way that there is restraint. A strong poster pillar, the monks, is a designation for mindfulness directed to the body. Therefore, monks, you should train yourself thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body, make it a vehicle, make it a basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus you should train yourself. Thus should you train yourself.
Okay, thank you, Vibhav. So here, this next one, he's talking about the same 6 animals being tied around their neck with a rope, but now they're tied to a post or a pillar. And these animals are pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, but each time they keep getting yanked back and yanked back and yanked back to the post or pillar. And as they do over time, these animals are going to get tired. And now as they get tired, they're going to sit down calmly by that post and pillar because they're worn out and they're fatigued. And now what he's describing is this is the same thing that your mind's going to do. That if you develop the foundations of mindfulness where you have awareness of the bodily sensations, and every time your mind gets ready to form a feeling based on some contact that it's having through the 6 sense bases, and you're noticing the bodily sensations, if you cut that off, that's like yanking the animal back. It's like yanking the eyes back, yanking the ears back, yanking the nose back, yanking the tongue back, yanking the body back, yanking the mind back. And over time, your mind is going to get tired. It's going to get fatigued, and it's going to learn to no longer long and yearn in these situations. So you're going to need to yank your mind back like this countless times over multiple years in your journey to enlightenment. But each time as you're yanking your mind back like that, you're helping the mind to eliminate some of its central desire. Because every time it pulls and pulls and pulls, it keeps getting yanked back and yanked back. And eventually it realizes, okay, don't do this anymore. He or she is just going to pull me back. And it doesn't do this because there's actually restraint in the mind by that point. So that's what you ultimately are building up to. And by doing so, you can understand that your mindfulness of the body, those bodily sensations, that's the poster pillar. That when you're noticing that, that's the indication, oh my goodness, the mind's about to form a conditioned feeling, yank it back, yank it back, yank it back. And that's why the breathing mindfulness meditation is so important for you, because that's what's teaching you to have the mindfulness or awareness of mind, and is teaching you to cut off and let go so that you can yank the mind back to being centered and calm and peaceful and steady, where it's no longer longing, yearning, and trying to form some kind of a pleasant feeling, painful feeling, or neither painful nor pleasant. So that's why the Buddha says you really need to perfect this mindfulness. This is the real linchpin in terms of what's going to help you to get to enlightenment. All the other things that the Buddha teaches are highly important to be able to get to enlightenment, but this is the real thing. This is it. Like if you can understand development of the cultivation of mindfulness, and you can catch it every single time as a bodily sensation that your mind's about to form a conditioned feeling, you're very close to enlightenment. You're probably within 1 to 3 years away. When you get to the point where you can notice the bodily sensations every single time and cut off and let go every single time, you're about 1 to 3 years away from enlightenment at that point. So that's why it's so important to really cultivate these 4 foundations of mindfulness. Let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. All right, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So let's go to the next chapter. This is chapter 27. Looks like Pat would like to read that one. Go ahead, sir.
The simile of the tortoise. Monks, in the past, a tortoise was searching for food along the bank of a river one evening. On that same evening, a jackal was also searching for food along the bank of that same river. When the tortoise saw the jackal in the distance searching for food, it drew its limbs and neck inside its shell and passed the time keeping still and silent. The jackal had also seen the tortoise in the distance searching for food, so he approached and waited close by, thinking, when this tortoise extends one or another of its limbs or its neck, I will grab it right on the spot, pull it out, and eat it. But because the tortoise did not extend any of its limbs or its neck, the jackal, failing to gain access to it, lost interest in it and departed. So too, monks, Mara, the evil one, is constantly and continually waiting close by you, thinking, perhaps I will gain access to him through the eye, or through the ear, or through the nose, or through the tongue, or through the body, or through the mind. Therefore, monks, reside guarding the doors of the 6 sense bases. Having seen a form with the eye, having heard a sound with the ear, having smelt an odor with the nose, having tasted a flavor with the tongue, having touched a physical object with the body, having recognized a mental object with the mind, do not grasp its signs and features. Since if you leave the eye sense base unguarded, the ear sense base unguarded, the nose sense base unguarded, the tongue sense base unguarded, the body sense base unguarded, the mind sense base unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of craving and displeasure might invade you. Practice the way of its restraint. Guard the eye sense base, the ear sense base, the nose sense base, the tongue sense base, the body sense base, the mind sense base. Undertake the restraint. Undertake the restraint of the eye sense base, the ear sense base, the nose sense base, the tongue sense base, the body sense base, and the mind sense base. And that's a lot of sense bases. When, monks, you reside guarding the doors of the 6 sense bases, Mara, the evil one, failing to gain access to you, will lose interest in you and depart, just as the jackal departed from the tortoise. Drawing in the mind's thoughts as the tortoise draws its limbs into its shell, independent, not harassing others, fully extinguished. A monk would not blame anyone. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So if you spent any time around turtles, you probably know that they have 6 limbs. They have the head and the tail, that's 2, and then they have their 4 legs, that's 6. So it's a perfect analogy for the 6 sense bases, how the mind longs and yearns through these 6 sense bases. But you can pull that back, just like the tortoise, right? Like say you're on Facebook and somebody comments negatively on your post, right? You can pull in your sense base. You can not react to it. You can choose to restrain the mind. And maybe if it's on your personal profile, you just delete it. No big deal. No need to reply back to this person. They're being hostile. They're being bitter. They're being harsh. You can pull back, right? Protect the mind. Or let's just say somebody writes something on Facebook that is over complimentary and is really, complimenting you and saying all kinds of fond things about you or your post or what have you. You can also draw in the mind there too, not allowing it to have these conditioned pleasant feelings based on the fact that somebody's saying something that's nice or kind or fond, because it's only a matter of time because of impermanence that someone's going to say something the opposite of that. So if you allow your mind to get so much pleasure when you experience this nice fond comment, when you get a comment that is unkind, now you're going to have difficulties and struggles with that. So you need to maintain your equanimity and like, oh, wow, that's really nice. Look at that. They said something really polite. But you can say that, you can think like that without allowing your mind to get a conditioned feeling. And now when somebody writes something that's negative or degrading, it's like, so unfortunate. Let me just delete their message. No big deal, right? You can just move on with your day, right? This is going to help you to be able to train your mind. So thinking about this tortoise, you can draw your limbs in. Right? Say you get certain information at work and you're noticing that the anger is starting to arise or frustration, you can draw in, right? No need to act upon that. You can kind of retreat into the shell and not allow the mind to long and yearn and react in these certain situations. So you can keep this simile of the tortoise in mind, that you're not interested in extending your neck because that's when you're going to get chopped off, right? That's when the jackal is going to come and grab you. Now, of course, the Buddha is talking here about Mara, this evil one, this formless being that is interested in causing calamity in the world. This being is going to try to tempt you through your sense bases because it knows that whenever you make a decision based in craving, it's going to lead to unwholesome results. So you're going to have certain temptations at different times where you might decide to indulge in that particular thing and long and yearn in that direction. And now Mara's got you, right? So instead, you can retreat into the shell, hold that back, allow the craving to dissipate, allow it to be knocked down, and now you can go on with your day. And that's the best way to be able to restrain the mind. And this is watching over and guarding your sense bases, using your mindfulness or your awareness of mind to be able to do that. Let me know what questions you guys have here on this one. We've had this one come up many times in our Pali Canon and English study group. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere, so we'll move on to the next one, which is chapter 28. Someone who would like to read this? Okay, it looks like Samantha's going again. Go ahead, ma'am.
Sense control leads to liberating wisdom and insight. Monks, imagine a tree with thriving branches and leaves. Its buds, bark, sapwood, and heart come to maturity. Even so, monks, when sense control exists, virtue, moral conduct, naturally thrives in him, thriving in sense control. When there is virtue, concentration naturally thrives in him. When concentration, true wisdom and insight. When true wisdom and insight, abandoning and freedom from strong feelings. When abandoning and freedom from strong feelings, liberating wisdom and insight naturally thrive in him.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. So here, what the Buddha is saying is that when you're able to control your senses, when you have control of your 6 sense bases, that you will naturally practice better moral conduct. Because if you have the wisdom of wise moral conduct, well, the thing that's going to drive you towards unwise moral conduct is the fact that your sense bases are uncontrolled. So if you're around your family and you hear something, and now that it's triggering your craving, and now your anger starts to arise, you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to your family. But when you have control of your sense bases, when you hear that thing that you would rather your family not say, you can maintain your calmness and composure. You're going to have better moral conduct. You're not going to be argumentative and bitter and harsh and hostile in this situation. So now, having this sense-based control and having this improved moral conduct, you'll be more concentrated. Because when you allow your mind to be angry and bitter and harsh and argumentative, you don't have concentration, right? Your mind is like all over the place, that your mind is unstable and unsteady. So then when there's concentration, that's where there's true wisdom and insight. Your mind is able to make wise decisions about your day-to-day activities. When you have that true wisdom and insight, this is where you can gain freedom from the strong feelings. You can eliminate discontentedness. You can actually get to enlightenment in this situation. So that's why sense control is so important, because it leads to improved decisions about your moral conduct. It leads to concentration. It leads to you being able to cultivate wisdom because your mind is calm and free. And now that's what leads to the liberation of the mind, or freedom from strong feelings. So sense control and controlling the mind is so important. Ultimately, you'll be able to get rid of your sensual desire, but in the process, you need to really be able to control the mind. That's what's going to help you to be able to make all these other wise decisions. Because if you don't have control of your mind and you have this mind is unrestrained, then your moral conduct is going to be unwise. And now when you're putting out that unwise moral conduct, you're putting out harm into the world, and this harm is just going to keep coming back to you. So the real key here is having that mindfulness and being able to cut off and let go anytime a conditioned feeling is arising, whether it's pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. So let me know what questions you guys have here by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. All right, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So now we'll move on to chapter 29. Is there someone who would like to read this? All right, Samantha's going again. Oh, Pat volunteered as well. We'll get you on the next one, Pat.
Without restraint, one dwells negligently. With restraint, one resides diligently. And how, monks, does one dwell negligently? If one dwells without restraint over the eye sense base, the mind is soiled among forms recognizable by the eye. If the mind is soiled, there is no gladness. When there is no gladness, there is no joy. When there is no joy, there is no tranquility. When there is no tranquility, one dwells in discontentedness. The mind of one who is discontent does not become concentrated. When the mind is not concentrated, experiences do not become easily recognizable or clear in the mind. Because experiences do not become easily recognizable or clear in the mind, one is considered as one who dwells negligently. Similar discourses are spoken in the case of the ear sense base, the nose sense base, the tongue sense base, the body sense base, and the mind sense base. It is in such a way, monks, that one dwells negligently. And how, monks, does one reside diligently? If one resides with restraint over the eye sense base, the mind is not soiled among forms recognizable by the eye. If the mind is not soiled, gladness is born. When one is gladdened, joy is born. When the mind is uplifted by joy, the body becomes tranquil. One tranquil in body experiences contentedness. The mind of one who is content becomes concentrated. When the mind is concentrated, experiences become easily recognizable or clear in the mind. Because experiences become easily recognizable or clear in the mind, one is considered to be as one who resides diligently. Similar discourses are spoken in the case of the ear sense base, the nose sense base, the tongue sense base, the body sense base, and the mind sense base. It is in such a way, monks, that one resides diligently.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. So here you can see how, once again, the Buddha is this expert at this cause and effect or action and result, showing you that this leads to that, and this leads to that, and this leads to that. This is the natural law of karma, the cause and effect, the nature of when this particular thing exists, then this thing's going to come to be. When this thing is occurring, then this next thing's going to occur. So what he's teaching you is to not be negligent at looking over the mind. Because if you're negligent looking over the mind, then you're not going to be able to experience the gladness, the joy, the tranquility. Your mind's going to dwell in this discontentedness. That's what he's explaining to you here all the way through this particular series. And then because your mind is dwelling in discontentedness, you're not going to have concentration. If you think back to times where you've had discontentedness, where you're angry or frustrated or stressed or having anxiety, all throughout those days, your mind wasn't concentrated. You weren't focused. You might have been having what you might have referred to as a bad day. And it all starts with being negligent about the sense bases and allowing the mind to form these conditioned feelings. But there's another way. This better way of life is to be diligent, that you can be diligent and restrain the mind, that all the sense bases, you can restrain them, as we've been talking about in this entire class. And now through doing that, you're not going to have this favoring and opposing or this agreeable and disagreeable contact, and your mind won't be soiled, and you'll have this gladness in the mind, this joy. You'll notice that the mind's calm or tranquil, and the mind will experience contentedness, right? And now with that contentedness, you'll have concentration in your day-to-day life. And it all starts with diligence of looking over the mind, having your mindfulness or awareness of mind, and not allowing the sense spaces to be unrestrained and uncontrolled. That's what's going to help you, that by being diligent from the time you wake up in the morning, all day long until you're going to sleep at night. Don't allow their thoughts to invade you. If you notice a sensual thought, a thought of harm, or a cruel thought arising in the mind, cut that off, applying right effort. So let me know what questions you guys have here about being diligent and not allowing the mind to be negligent. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So we just have one more chapter for today. Oops. This is chapter 30. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Oh, it's supposed to be Pat. There you are, sir. All right.
Diligence is declared to be the chief. Monks, whatever beings there are, whether those without feet or those with 2 feet or those with 4 feet or those with many feet, whether consisting of form or formless, whether insightful, non-insightful, or neither insightful nor non-insightful. The Tathagata, the Arahant, the perfectly enlightened one, is declared to be the chief among them. So too, whatever wholesome states there are, they are all rooted in diligence, merge upon diligence, and diligence is declared to be the chief among them. When a monk is diligent, it is to be predicted that he will develop and cultivate the noble Eightfold Path. The Tathagata also made analogies of diligence being chief with the following: elephant's footprint being the chief among footprints of all living beings, roof peak being the chief among all the rafters of a peaked house, black orris being the chief among all fragrant roots, red sandalwood being the chief among all fragrant heartwoods, jasmine being the chief among all fragrant flowers, wheel-turning monarch being the chief among all petty princes, radiance of the moon being the chief among the radiance of all the stars, the sun in autumn when the sky is clear and cloudless shines and beams and radiates, Cassian cloth being the chief among all woven cloths. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So out of all the different qualities that you need to cultivate in the mind, that's all based on an individual being diligent. If you're not diligent in your practice to cultivate the mind, you're not going to be able to see your way through all the way to enlightenment. So that's what the Buddha is saying is the real chief quality that you need to cultivate above and beyond everything else is diligence, determination, the fortitude to continue through. Because as you're on this journey to enlightenment, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be struggles, there's going to be times where you're eliminating attachments, and it's going to be very painful for you, right? Sometimes we think about the journey to enlightenment as, it must just be so enjoyable, right? Just to kind of walk towards enlightenment. Well, yes, there's obviously lots of enjoyment along the way, and particularly as you get closer and closer to enlightenment, there's plenty of enjoyment in the mind. But in the process of getting there, when you're eliminating attachment to people or possessions or things like this, it can be really painful for the mind because you're getting all that pleasure through getting your cravings fulfilled. And now when you're starting to walk away and kind of let go of these cravings, it's going to be painful. You have to experience that. That's walking through the fire to appreciate the fresh air on the other side. It's like you got into the mafia and you got all these pleasant feelings with all these new friends and ability to make money. But now when you have to leave the mafia, it's really painful to get out. But it's diligence that's going to see you through this, right? So if you're diligent and determined in your journey to enlightenment with your meditation, with your learning and growing and developing and all the other things you need to do, then that's what's going to actually help you to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And the first amount of diligence that you need is to develop the knowledge and the wisdom of the Eightfold Path, and then to actually be able to practice it, because that is the path to enlightenment. And remember, it's important to do this with the original words of the Buddha. If you haven't studied the Eightfold Path with the original words of the Buddha, then an individual will have no ability to actually be able to make their way to enlightenment, not even get to the first stage of enlightenment. So an individual is going to need to know the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. You would like to commit this to your memory so that way you can actually practice it. So if you haven't taken the opportunity to do that, it's really important to spend time to develop your intellectual understanding and memorization of the Eightfold Path, and then be diligent in your studying of that, and then be diligent in your execution of it and implementing it into your day-to-day life. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom. Looks like we have a few questions. So Robert, you're first. Go ahead, sir.
So I think one of the questions is like, when you're saying be chief among them, is that not conceit to think yourself above other beings?
The Buddha is basically saying that people consider a Buddha to be, the best performing human being, the kind of perfectly enlightened one. So this isn't his ego. He's just kind of saying like, this is what people consider out of all the beings in the world. A Buddha is going to be one who people look to as being chief among all the other beings, because it's this Buddha that's bringing wisdom into the world. But yes, if somebody thought that way about themselves, that they are better than anybody else, then yes, that would be ego, that would be conceit. But the Buddha is basically saying, this is what other people think, is that a Buddha is the best being among all beings. Because if it wasn't for this Buddha coming into the world, all the other beings wouldn't be able to get the wisdom that they need to be able to make their way to enlightenment. But an enlightened being, a Buddha, they don't see themselves as being above somebody else.
So it's like they don't think they're the chief among everyone. It's just because of how they are acting or experiencing things. They're de facto a chief being, like the best being. I guess the word chief is a little confusing in terms of it being a status thing, at least in our culture.
You might think of this word as leader, right? Like a Buddha is the leader among all other beings. And what he's saying is like diligence is the leader among all other qualities of mind that you need to cultivate.
Okay, I think that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looks like Samantha has a question. Go ahead, sir, or ma'am, sorry.
I know it's been a while since I've asked a question, but you should know I'm a female.
Well, there's no you, right? There's no you.
That's true. This is I guess a general question again about an attachment to people. So I recently finished a trip where I saw many people that I haven't seen in a year. And I realized, upon kind of saying goodbye to many of them, most of them actually, that there wasn't really like an attachment to that. And I wasn't quite sure how to respond to them when they said, "Oh, I miss you and I can't wait to see you again." In my mind, I don't actually miss them. I did feel like there was maybe a smoother way of saying things. I just said, "Yeah, it'll be nice to see you when I come back." But my best friend, who knows a lot about the journey that I'm on, and I can speak to her freely about, I'm trying not to use certain words and this and that, and to be very concise and truthful in what I say. I didn't quite know what to say to, I don't want to say more common people or people that I'm less close to. I just, if you could give me some guidance on that for next time.
Yeah, what you said is fine. Like, oh, it'll be nice to see you as well. That's fine because, yeah, it'd be nice to see them. Sometimes what I say when like people are like, "Oh, I missed you so much," I sometimes say, "Oh, I understand. No worries. I'm sure we'll see each other at some point, or perhaps we'll be able to see each other at some point in the future." Because when I say I understand, what I'm saying there is I understand you're attached. And I know that within my own mind. So you can say things like that, like, "Oh, I understand. No worries. Perhaps we'll see each other again in the future." Or, "Oh, that's understandable. Yeah, it'll be nice to see you when I come back as well. That'll be great." So any of those kinds of things are completely fine because they're going to receive those things warmly. Where, as you've heard me say, it's kind of unwise to be like, "Yeah, I'm not going to miss you. Don't worry, I'm not attached to you." This can sound very pompous and conceited, right? But it was probably very different for you to experience being around people and not being attached and not having this missing feeling. One of the things that some students have been talking to me about recently is about how odd it feels for them in certain situations to not be experiencing that situation in the same way that they used to in the past. That now that they've been training their mind, they're experiencing the world in a very different way, and it feels a bit odd to them. And what I was explaining to them is it's kind of like a new pair of shoes, that when you wear a new pair of shoes, your body has to kind of get used to them. And it might even feel a little bit odd at first when you're wearing these new shoes, but ultimately it's like the most comfortable pair of shoes you've ever had. So it's the same thing that when you're around people, you can say these kind of nice things. What you said was fine. And just understand that if there was any feeling of any oddness, I don't know that there was, but if there was, just know that your mind will get more and more comfortable with being around people and not being attached. And your mind will know what that feels like and you'll feel so much better. But you're going to see other people having attachment. And sometimes what you might see is you might see that people say these kinds of things like, "Oh, I'm going to miss you so much." They just say that because they think it's the actually appropriate thing to say because they're just so used to doing that in society. Where sometimes when I've actually questioned people that are really close to me, when they talk about how much they're going to miss me or they have missed me, I'd be like, "Really? Well, what was that like when you were missing me?" And then, like when I really talked to them, they actually weren't really missing me. They just said it because they thought it was like the kind thing to say. It's kind of a general statement that a lot of people say. So in some situations, you might encounter those kinds of things as well.
I feel like that's probably true. A lot of times we do say things without thinking just because it's a standard, "Hi, how are you doing?" kind of thing. When in fact you aren't really invested in, the answer. But my one thought that arose to me is that I wasn't sure whether my feeling of non-attachment was because I'm not around them as much anymore, because I don't feel like I have made a concerted effort to be unattached to them.
Yeah, so the first thing to do in order to eliminate a certain attachment, if you're going to cut it off and let it go, is you need to distance yourself from the object. That's the first thing that the Buddha teaches. And then the next thing is to train the mind to let go. So the fact that you've been away from your friends for a period of time, it's allowed the mind to let go. So without having to really do like contemplation of death and things like this for maybe people that you have a deep attachment to, like maybe your family members and stuff like that, you would need to do things that are actively working to eliminate your attachment, like contemplation of death and things like this, where some people that are just friends or you've been friendly with them for an extended period of time, you can actually train your mind to let go of those attachments by just distancing yourself from them for a period of time, like you have by living in Thailand. And now, after you do that and your mind has actually let go of your attachment, you'll learn how you can come around them and you can have wonderful time around them, but you're not attached to them. This is one of the things that oftentimes in Buddhist communities, people don't understand. They think that in order to eliminate attachment, you have to have no relationships whatsoever. They don't understand that once your mind lets go, you can actually spend time around plenty of people and you're just not attached. And now your relationships will go phenomenal for you because you're not putting expectations on them. You're not getting bitter and harsh and hostile with them. You're not pushing them aside. You're not having all those kind of expectations of them because now the mind has let go of its attachment. So it sounds like what probably happened here is just by you being away from them for a period of time, it allowed your mind to let go. And that's normal for individuals who you don't have a very strong attachment to, that you won't have to do anything more than that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end class by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for those of you guys that read. Thank you for your questions and the discussion about the teachings. Next week, we're going to be in the next set of chapters, so you guys can read those if you like. I think it's chapter 31 through 40 next week, so you're welcome to read those ahead of time because there's a lot more details in the book than that we cover in the classes. So between reading and coming to classes, you're going to get the most out of this type of program. So you could read before class or after class because you've got the words of the Buddha and you've got words from me to be able to help you there as well. And then tomorrow in our group learning program, we're going to be in volume 1, chapter 22 of this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Chapter 22 is titled Mental Health, a Modern Day Delusion. This is where I'm going to help people to understand unique perspective about things like anorexia, bulimia, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADHD, ADD. All of these things are being taught as like a biological defect in the brain and that there needs to be chemical intervention in order to fix these things. But these things and others, you're going to be able to see that it's just a lack of training of the mind. That if the mind is well trained, you won't experience these symptoms any longer. So while the symptoms and the anguish that people experience through those experiences is actually true and real, the actual cause of what's causing it isn't biological. And I'm going to walk you through in a way that you can independently verify to be able to see that to be the case. So I'm going to be teaching that tomorrow on Sunday from either at 9 a.m. in the morning at the temple and live streaming it, or 9 p.m. from here at home and live streaming that. And then on Monday, I'm going to be starting a Harmony and Relationships course where Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., I'm going to be teaching all the teachings to help students to understand how to develop harmonious relationships. And on Monday, I'm going to be starting with the Eightfold Path. So if anybody needs a refresher and really kind of digging in to be able to memorize the Eightfold Path, Monday morning at 9 a.m. would be a great opportunity to do that because I'm going to spend the entire morning to help students understand the Eightfold Path, walking students through that. So thank you all again for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee-khap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.